Right now, the Commonwealth is dealing with a massive shortage of housing.
Over the next decade, state leaders believe that we need to add about 200,000 more units to solve our housing crunch.
Look closer and the warning signs are everywhere. Builders are pulling back. Permits are drying up. Renters are being priced out faster than ever. The uncomfortable reality is this. Boston may be building more housing than before, but it's building less of a future people can actually afford. That tension, growth versus access, optimism versus math, is driving everything that follows. The latest Greater Boston Housing Report Card from the Boston Foundation reads like a victory lap at first glance. Since 2020, Massachusetts has added nearly 98,000 housing units statewide, about 71,000 of them in Greater Boston. For a state long criticized for underbuilding, that's a striking jump. It's the kind of progress any administration would highlight. Governor Maura Healey has set a goal of 222,000 new homes by 2035 under the Affordable Homes Act. And suddenly, that target appears within reach.
We're a great state with so much going for us. But fundamentally, we know we need housing. We need housing for students who are graduating from our great colleges and universities.
At least that's how the headline reads. Because while completed homes tell you what's already happened, permits tell you what's coming next. And what's coming next is looking bleak. In Greater Boston, the number of building permits pulled by developers has collapsed at a stunning pace. From more than 15,000 permits in 2021, the figure plunged to under 9,000 in 2024. That's a nearly 67% drop in just 3 years. And the early data for 2025 is even worse. As of July, permits are running 44% below where they were at the same point 4 years ago. In the world of real estate, that's not a blip, that's a warning siren. Here's why that matters. Housing doesn't respond instantly. It moves slowly like a glacier. Permits today become homes years from now. When developers stop pulling permits, it's a sign they don't believe the economics work anymore. And when that belief spreads, supply dries up long before most people realize what's happening. Researchers at Boston Indicators, the research arm of the Boston Foundation, don't mince words about what this could mean. A slowdown now all but guarantees tighter markets, higher prices, and deeper affordability problems down the line. The report calls it a good news, bad news story. But even that may be too generous, because the bad news doesn't just cancel out the good, it threatens to erase it entirely.
This year, the Boston Foundation said the cost of a single-family home peaked at more than $1 million.
Layered on top of this slowdown are forces largely outside the control of local policymakers. Elevated tariffs on imported materials are quietly driving up construction costs. Restrictive immigration policies are raising the specter of labor shortages in an industry that already struggles to find workers. According to the report, these trends threaten to push production costs even higher and slow development to a crawl. Translation: even developers who want to build may soon find it financially impossible. And that's before you even get to the uniquely Boston obstacles that have been choking supply for decades. Ask anyone in real estate what really holds Boston back, and the answer comes quickly. Zoning, NIMBYism, local resistance that's baked into the culture.
Tens of thousands of affordable homes, maybe more. That's what experts are targeting to help ease Hawaii's housing crisis. It'll also need the support of folks in wealthy communities.
Jake Krimmel, senior economist at Realtor.com, puts it bluntly. Overly restrictive and archaic zoning laws, combined with a deeply entrenched, not-in-my-backyard mindset and rising construction costs, have effectively put the brakes on new development across the metro. Greg Vassil, CEO of the Greater Boston Real Estate Board, agrees, and he's been watching this dynamic play out for years.
Larry Curtis is passionate about two things from my perspective.
Massachusetts, he says, is full of progressive thinkers who want big solutions in theory, but in practice remain fiercely protective of the way their own neighborhoods look and feel. This tension between wanting housing in general and resisting it locally is one of the quiet villains of the entire story. Communities say they want affordability, more supply, more opportunity. Then, behind closed doors, they add a qualifier. Build it somewhere else. Not here, not on this street, not near these schools. Vassil describes it as a kind of whispered resistance, a soft but powerful force that shapes zoning boards and planning meetings. Everyone supports housing until it threatens the character of their own block.
Mortgage rates and Fed cuts are helping for now, but the consumer and data outlook remain foggy.
And that resistance has consequences that ripple outward. One of the most damaging effects is something industry insiders call a lack of housing mobility. The system as it stands traps people in place. Renters can't move into starter homes because they don't exist at accessible prices. Families can't move up to larger homes because supply is constrained. Empty nesters can't downsize without leaving their communities entirely. So nobody moves, inventory stays locked up, and prices climb even higher. Vassil paints the picture in simple terms. There's no natural progression anymore, no stepping stones. just bottlenecks at every stage of life. Ironically, the solution isn't new. In fact, it's old. After World War II, America faced a massive housing shortage for returning veterans, and the response was a wave of smaller, more modest homes built quickly and at scale. That kind of approach could ease today's crunch, especially for first-time buyers and retirees.
The median price for a single-family home in Greater Boston has surpassed $1 million.
But once again, zoning stands in the way. Higher density, smaller lots, multifamily options. These ideas often trigger fierce opposition at the local level, particularly in suburban communities that have grown accustomed to low-density living. Vasile doesn't shy away from calling this out, even when it hits close to home. He talks openly about older homeowners, including members of his own family, who resist change because they like their communities exactly as they are. To them, Boston worked just fine in the 70s and 80s. Why should it look any different now? But the city they remember no longer exists. Boston today is a global hub, a magnet for talent, education, and investment. And global cities don't stay frozen in time. If they try, the cost of nostalgia gets passed on to the next generation. All of this would be troubling enough on its own. But the affordability data turns concern into alarm. Despite the increase in housing construction since the pandemic, Greater Boston's housing crisis has only deepened. Home prices remain stubbornly high. Rents have leveled off, but at levels that are already out of reach for many households.
Buying a home in Boston
It's a beautiful place. There's not one much better in the world.
has its perks: rich history, top-notch education.
In October, the median list price in Boston hovered just under $800,000. That's the fifth highest among the 50 largest U.S. metros, and the highest outside of California. For a region that prides itself on opportunity, that number tells a different story. The real gut punch comes when you look at what it takes to buy even the most modest home. In 2021, a household earning around $98,000 could afford a starter home at the low end of the market, with a monthly payment of roughly $2,520. Fast forward to 2025, and that same starter home now demands a monthly payment closer to $4,200. To afford that, a household needs to earn more than $162,000 a year. In just 4 years, the income threshold has skyrocketed, and the pool of people who can realistically buy has been cut almost in half.
But for most renters, home ownership is still a far-off dream.
Yeah, the salary necessary for a starter home has skyrocketed.
The numbers are stark. Only 15% of renters in Greater Boston can currently afford an entry-level home. In 2021, that figure was 30%, 1 in 7. That's the new reality. Luke Schuster, executive director of Boston Indicators, calls it sobering. The combination of rising prices and higher mortgage rates has effectively frozen the market, locking out entire segments of the population. And the consequences aren't evenly distributed. For Black renter households, the Black renter families in Greater Boston can afford an entry-level home. That's not just a housing issue. That's a generational equity issue. Renters who give up on buying don't get a free pass either. Nearly half of Greater Boston's renters are now considered cost-burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing.
Buying a house in Greater Boston.
I know that it's really hard for kids, 20s, 30s, even older, to find an affordable place to live.
More than a quarter are severely cost-burdened, shelling out over half of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. These aren't fringe cases, they're becoming the norm. And when housing consumes that much of a household budget, everything else suffers. Savings, healthcare, education, stability. Nationally, the verdict isn't kind. Massachusetts earned an F on Realtor.com's state-by-state housing report card, part of the Let America Build campaign. The grading isn't symbolic. It reflects years of underproduction, regulatory hurdles, and missed opportunities. And yet, at the state level, officials insist they're trying to turn the tide. The Affordable Homes Act, signed into law in 2024, committed a record $5 billion to housing and launched nearly 50 initiatives aimed at speeding up construction.
It's a great morning for Massachusetts because today we are signing the largest investment in housing in our state's history, $5.2 billion.
The administration has identified hundreds of acres of surplus state-owned land that could be redeveloped into thousands of new homes. There's momentum, at least on paper, but even supporters of these efforts see storm clouds gathering. One of the biggest is a proposed ballot initiative that could bring rent stabilization to Massachusetts as early as 2026. To housing advocates, it sounds like protection. To developers and investors, it sounds like a full stop. Vasile doesn't mince words. If rent stabilization passes, he argues, rental housing production in Massachusetts would grind to a halt. Investors won't risk capital in a market where returns are capped and uncertainty reigns. Whether you agree or not, the fear alone could further chill development in an already fragile pipeline. This is where the story circles back to its central paradox. Boston is building more homes than it has in years, yet fewer people can afford to live in them. Permits are falling just as demand remains relentless. Policies meant to protect residents risk discouraging the very construction needed to bring prices down.
We need rent control because people can't afford to live where they work, where they go to school, and in their communities.
And all the while, local resistance continues to shape outcomes in quiet but powerful ways. The report card doesn't just measure housing units. It measures political will, cultural flexibility, and the gap between what the region says it wants and what it's willing to allow. If you step back, the structure of this story almost writes itself. It begins with optimism, grounded in real gains and ambitious promises. It shifts to unease as forward-looking indicators start to slide. It deepens into conflict as zoning battles, cultural resistance, and economic pressures collide. It personalizes the crisis through income thresholds, renter statistics, and stark affordability math. And it ends not with a neat resolution, but with a question mark hanging over the future. Can Boston change fast enough to avoid locking itself into a permanent housing squeeze?